Well, we're live.
All right, we're live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our community meeting, our Black and Brown Coalition meeting. We are excited about our conversation. Well, not really excited, but we're having the conversation.
We're excited to make space
For
for
the
community. The topic,
Yes,
not the greatest.
Yeah, we do need to talk about it. And so if you can go ahead and share, we have 3 platforms that we're working with. We have our wonderful in-studio audience. Thank you for being here. And we also have our Facebook Live and our YouTube. So go ahead and share the link and invite as many as you can to the conversation. We want to hear from you. You know, this is an opportunity for us to chat about the election aftermath and what's next and where do we go from here? So that's what we're going to do. So go ahead, share, and let me check because I've been known to do lives and the value. Yeah, so I'm going to make sure.
We're going to make sure we are live.
We're going to make sure
we're going to ask some of our folks in the audience to check on platforms to see if we're live, and they give us the thumbs up.
Okay, I'm going to make sure because I learned from my past mistakes here.
No, ma'am, I got some already. Thank you.
Okay,
looks like we're live.
We're good. We're good on that platform. Check my other one. I got to check them all.
While Donna's checking that, I think it's really important for folks who we've been talking to community members throughout the past week and a half since the election, and a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different feelings, and we understand.
Well, Alex, we got to introduce ourselves.
Oh,
you can't assume everybody know us.
Right. Protocol.
Right. Yes. So introductions. Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
My name is Donna. I'm with the Doc Bookshop. I'm the co-owner of the Doc Bookshop. And every month we have our community meeting where we just discuss an array of topics, and we have special guests also here as well. But we just really want to engage community. And so this is one of the platforms that we use to do that. So every second Thursday, we will have a community meeting. Whether it's folks.
I can't hear you back here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, some in-person audience members.
Yeah, that's my sister Diane, you can join me. But yeah, at any rate, we this is our platform where we engage community every second Thursday at 7:00 here at the Doc Bookshop. If you're in the DFW area, we invite you to come. Otherwise, you can just join us live.
Yeah. And see, another Donna is joining us online saying, sorry, couldn't be there tonight. No problem, Donna. Glad you're able to join us online, which is why we do this. Not only in person in the community, but we also broadcast through Facebook and YouTube and ask folks to share so that people can be a part of the conversation no matter where they're at, because there's a lot of things happening in people's lives, and sometimes online is the best way to connect.
Yeah.
But my name is Alexander Montalvo. I'm a co-founder of Terran for Change and also a member of the Forward Black and Brown Coalition. And I'm always excited that we get to partner with the Doc Bookshop to have these community meetings the second Thursday of every month. And over the last several months, since July, our theme of our meetings have been focused around the election.
Oh, politics, because this race was huge.
Yeah, so we've had different conversations for people to talk about things like Project 2025, to talk about Kamala Harris taking over the top of the ticket.
And some of the other candidates that are running or that ran.
We had the Tarrant County Democratic Party chair, Crystal, here, and some of the candidates talk about Patrick Moses for sheriff, some House district candidates, and others. And the whole goal of all of this was to help the community have some interactions leading up to the election, so they could ask questions, so they could talk about some of the concerns that they had. And we heard a lot of those from different community members throughout these months.
Yeah, just to be hands with the candidates. That was great.
So we're here with community in person. great to have y'all here. Great to be here with everyone. And we have community online. And
Yes.
the purpose of our conversation today is 2024 election debrief. We want to really open it up to give people an opportunity to share their perspectives and their thoughts, um, and to talk about what are some of the next steps that folks can do, as we hear a lot of concerns about what people are hearing in the news right now, and
a lot of
a lot of concerns with results of the election. So, yeah, one thing that we can share with Tarrant County is that
you have the results, right?
one of the things that we really were focusing on this election cycle was locally in Tarrant County. The sheriff's race was the biggest race that we had on the ballot. We know that statewide there was a U.S. Senate race with Colin Allred and Ted Cruz, and then of course the presidential race. For sheriff, Bill Wayborn was reelected with 423,968 votes. Patrick Moses, the Democratic challenger, had 365,193 votes,
Close, but not quite.
totaling 789,161 people that voted for the sheriff's race. And so 53.72% went to current Sheriff Wayborn, and he won re-election, and 46.2% voted for Patrick Moses. And I think there's been a lot of work. You know, we've had the sisters of Anthony Johnson Jr. and the Johnson family here at the Doc Bookshop with various efforts talk about what happened to Anthony Johnson Jr., their brother, and the family's son being murdered in the Tarrant County jails. There's been a lot of reporting. A lot of reporting done around multiple, deaths, over 67, 68 deaths in the jail since Sheriff Wayborn's been in office. And so what we saw a lot this cycle was just continuing to work to try to educate folks around this. But I want to just compare this election's results for sheriff compared to 2020. And in 2020, Sheriff Wayborn got 424,000 votes, 424,080 votes. And the challenger for 2020 was Democratic Vance Keys, got 381,021 votes. So while Sheriff Wayborn had a small bump in votes, we really saw a decrease in terms of the Democratic challenger in terms of the votes. And that's something that, we want to continue to understand from community about this position, about county commissioner positions, about constables, about Texas House seats. What are some of the things that the community still wants to know about this stuff? And want to open it up to our audience here. Like, what are some things about the sheriff's race and some of these local races that you feel is missing in the community?
We do have some good news, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do have one win, right?
In terms of Tarrant County, you mean if somebody got the majority of the votes versus the Republican incumbent?
Roderick.
Oh, yes. Roderick did get elected to replace Commissioner Brooks, who was a Democratic commissioner who's been in office for a while. I don't know how many years. I don't have the number off the top of my head.
Right.
But
I guess I was Democratic.
Roderick Miles was able to successfully keep that seat for the Democratic Party. Yeah. And then Colin Allred, it looks like, did win by a little bit over 1,000 votes in Tarrant County. So it does show a trend, especially since 2018, that Democrats are able to win countywide when it comes to statewide races or national races. Kamala did not win Tarrant County-wide. The Harris-Waltz ticket did not win against the Trump-Vance ticket. But we do still see that potential is still there. That continues to, I think, for a lot of organizers and a lot of organizations and even candidates, wanting to understand what is the real potential of diversity of vote in Tarrant County, because those results do keep happening, even in an election where we saw a little less turnout than a previous election. So,
why do you think that is?
well, I think I would love
the
to
less
get.
turnout. Why?
I think
As significant as we were,
Mhm.
not just us, but like a lot of people were talking about this race.
Yeah, I think in 2020
I'm just surprised the numbers decreased.
the pandemic was really intense for everyone, and people were feeling a lot of the strain and impacts of the pandemic. And also, early voting was expanded during the pandemic, so we had more days to vote. There was things like in certain parts of the state, drive-through voting. Um, Voting sites were open later for people to have access.
Oh, okay.
And so we saw a lot of folks voting early, more than any other election. Um, that kind of shows the more access you give people to vote, the more people will vote. I think that's something that's there. But I think there was a lot of impact people were feeling, and people are still feeling a lot of impact. But the pandemic was a unique situation where I think a lot of people wanted to make sure they had a vote. But there's other things that contribute. The state of Texas changed the mail-in ballot requirements where you have to have additional information. And we've seen from previous elections that people have not had all the information to keep their mail-in ballot with all the details that are needed now, so they get rejected. There's been a lot of efforts to educate people around that, but that can cause, lower voter turnout or even participation because people feel like, I don't understand what's all needed now, things like
Right.
that.
And then some people even their name wasn't on the list.
Yeah,
So
I
some
think
people
2
ran into that.
million, I think the number I saw, up
Yeah.
to 2 million Texans got purged from voter rolls. And then at the beginning of this year, 600,000 Texans lost their driver's license because of unresolved speeding tickets. And what we've seen in Texas, when you try to get a driver's license, it takes you months to book a meeting. If you try to book one now, it's months until you get an appointment. So that is also another hurdle that happens. And so, yeah, voter suppression, Texas is always ranked as one of the hardest states to vote. And although we get a lot of people moving into Texas from other states or even from other countries, navigating Texas in a number of different ways, whether it's, doing work in business or whether it's voting, it's not intuitively always easy. And so for voting in particular, when folks are moving throughout the United States and coming here and want to vote, there's a lot of education, a lot of support that's needed to make sure that they're registered, to make sure they know the IDs that they're needing, and to understand where to vote. And sometimes if they're not given that support, they're not going to show up to the voting booth. Also, people who have been, Texans from day one. And so I think that's one of the things that people they'll always make an impact on voting in Texas because we have so many hurdles around that.
So I'm going to go straight to the audience.
Mhm.
Carl, what happened?
What I saw was when President Obama came down out of the ivory towers and down talking to the black men at the barber shop, and he wasn't able really to communicate because he was more or less talking down to them. And that's one thing Jesse Jackson said back when he was president. He said Obama talks down to black people, and you got saw it in that case when he came down, and that alerted me that she was in trouble because politics is what they said, warfare without the guns. When she was in trouble, you're in a fight, and in any boxing match, if you show that you're hurt, your opponent moves in for the kill. So you can't show that you're hurt, and so that right there was a big red flag for me. I knew then she was in trouble, and that it was only a matter of time before she was going to be put away, as they say in boxing.
Donnie, were we able to hear that online, or do I need to repeat that? What Carl just said.
I don't know. You probably have to summarize it so they can hear it online. Just summarize what his thoughts were.
Okay, well, Carl, one of our in-studio audience members, shared with us that he felt Kamala was in trouble when President Obama did not connect with the black men when he came to speak with them. Where was this?
There was some barber shop somewhere.
Oh, okay. And that didn't go too well. No, that didn't go too well. Okay. Yeah.
More
So
black men voted for Trump this time than ever before.
interesting. Well, okay. Well, and I think a lot of Hispanic men, a lot of men, I think,
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah,
Ready.
and it's been interesting hearing narratives around, voting trends and things like that. And yeah, there was definitely some increases from diverse communities that voted for Trump, but it still shows that the majority of the Black community did not vote for Trump, and the majority of the Latino community did not vote for Trump. But what we did see again is that the majority of the white community voted for Trump. And so I think one of the things that I always push back on
They said
is
the majority of Hispanic voted for Trump.
no, as a community altogether, there was Cuban Americans that voted for the majority of Trump, but the largest demographic is Mexican Americans, and they voted the least for Trump.
Oh, okay.
And there are some places where men may have voted close to a majority for Trump, but overall, as a community, the majority did not vote for Trump. And what we saw in things like South Texas, where some of the voter turnout in like Tarrant County and Dallas or other counties throughout Texas, they voted in the 60% turnout, getting close to 70%. But in South Texas, those counties were either at 50% or under 50% of turnout. So what you saw also from that community was saying that they're just not going to vote for either one of them. And I get a chance to go down to South Texas and talk to organizers from time to time, or talk to them virtually. And one thing that you hear from organizers and community members in South Texas is a lot of the Democrats that run in South Texas are really Republicans. And then the Republicans that run are really just these far right Republicans. And so a lot of folks are frustrated, especially the younger folks, where South Texas is very young amongst the Latino community. They don't feel like there's good options, and they get frustrated with that. And that is them voicing their perspective that they're not participating. And so when you see that depressed vote in South Texas, and you see some of these trends, it's very easy for the narratives to look at community, Black community, brown community, diverse communities votes in a deficit. But we're always hearing narratives around how the white community votes are an asset. And so we have to appeal to white voters. We have to convince these moderates to vote for things that will support diverse communities. Yet the majority of the white community are the ones that are voting for Trump. And so somehow they're seen as an asset, but any movement within diverse communities is seen as a deficit. And I think that we need to really change that narrative. And all this money that was spent in getting out the vote really help people see that we've got to invest in more relationship building, community building in our diverse communities.
Right.
Because next to no investment is being done there because of this deficit perspective that is framed by them, but is not actual reality.
Yeah, Danya has some commentary on that as well. Danya, did you want to share your perspective? Because she's been saying. Because she's been saying that for the longest, that she
Do y'all want to come closer so that in case they can hear y'all?
Okay.
that she felt that it wasn't grassroots connection made, but I don't even think that would have been.
Just go high level with the stats as long as my voice can hold out. They said the Latino men was the second largest group that voted for Trump. That was the second, yeah. And I'm confused at how that happened, but yeah, they voted for Trump 54%. So there's probably some work that needs to be done in that area. And I want to say, then of course, white men and white women, and then Latino women was the second largest group that also voted for Trump. In terms of, if we look at the African American population, there's 21, if we only had about 12% of the African American population that voted. If we have more that voted, there would have been better
Only
results.
12%.
Huh?
12%.
It can't
Yes,
be that
it was,
low.
It might be 11. It was neck and neck for the Latino and the African American community, 12%. And she
That's
lost.
really
and she
low.
lost
Yeah.
probably by.
I don't.
She lost by probably 76 million. He got 76 million, and she got 73 million. So she lost 3 million. Now, what is really disturbing is we have people say that the presidential race doesn't matter, it's the local race, so I may not go vote because they say they're going to take care of local is what matters. But if you chose not to go vote that day, you missed a lot of local things that happen. And people, I think there's a myth that voting for the president does not impact your community. It does.
Of
It's
course.
because, yeah, well, there's a myth out there. It doesn't impact. Everybody say local. No, that's not your answer. You have to vote. You have to vote in really every election matters. And he is doing a job in terms of fielding his cabinet. Do I disagree with his cabinet pick?
He's working on that cabinet.
Do I disagree with his cabinet pick? If you do the math, everybody say he's not picking blacks, but blacks didn't pick him. So he won, and he's not.
Well, now he had it like Carl
he
said,
got Clarence Thomas, of course, and he got
but the numbers obviously increased according to Carl
what?
with black voters.
Black men. Black men.
Yeah, it went up, but there's a percentage. It's still a very small percentage that actually voted for Trump. But he had enough numbers in different areas
Right.
that made it different in the electoral vote.
Right.
So it may look like that the 20% that did not, or the remaining ones, the 80% that voted otherwise, because I think Kamala only got 20% of African American men.
No,
No. She still got the
20%.
majority.
20% voted for Trump.
Yeah, men.
Okay.
Yeah, and black voters represent 14% of the electorate, but that's not how many voted. A higher percentage voted and participated
Yeah.
in turnout.
Okay,
But there is still room
if
to
you
improve
have
turnout.
If you have 7% that African American women voted, out of that 7%, 96% voted for Trump. So it's that small percentage.
Of African American women?
Yeah, you gotta look at your percentages. It says
Those numbers don't
Yeah,
sound right.
I don't
No,
think.
ma'am.
Yeah, I don't think.
No, ma'am.
You look at your numbers.
Diane, I don't know what numbers you're looking at.
Because everybody wants to look at that lower number. They want to look at that 92%, but that's 92% of 7%. They're not looking at
Of the electorate, that represent the electorate.
Total population.
Yeah,
Okay, let me get you these numbers because
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the equivalent of the amount of the community that turned out.
Yeah.
no,
But-
that's not 92%. That means 7% black women voted, and it's 7% of 50% of black women voted. It's all over the place. It's been everywhere.
You're saying how many? What's the percentage?
7% of black women. See, nobody sees that number. They look at 92%, 90% black women voted. No, that's 90% of the 7%. You didn't get the 15%. It's 15% of the population. Black women are 50% of the population. That's 21 million black women. So only 7% voted, and of those 7%, 96% voted for Trump, or 92 or something like that.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't
No,
know. I don't know those.
No, ma'am.
We can take a look at
I'm
it.
sorry.
All
Listen,
you have to do is pull up any stat. Pull up
Yeah.
the stat.
well, I will, but let
But
me
if
just
you
say,
can't if you can't read stats, it makes no sense. You could be in denial all you want.
well, let me just say
Numbers don't
this. Let me just say this,
lie.
Diane.
Numbers
If
don't lie.
we all took stats class in college, I don't know,
You know, pull up the
and you
numbers.
can make up stats. Okay, so at the end of the day,
At the
give
end
me
of the day,
who's
she
your
didn't win.
source.
At the end of the day, she didn't win. And if you don't look at stats, you're not going to ever be able to fix your problem.
Well, she didn't win. Well, like you
If you
said, the
don't
majority
look
of white
at stats,
people
you
Right.
will
voted
never
for Trump.
fix
That's
your
why she didn't
problem,
win.
and you will always be in denial. That's what it is.
So we're gonna go to Carlos.
92%
We're gonna go to
of black
Carlos here in a
women did not
second.
vote.
But I think the biggest, my encouragement to everyone is to see like there is power in the white MAGA vote. Okay, the majority of the white community voted for Trump, and to offset that power, we need to invest in getting out the vote in diverse communities, because the amount of votes that are there are more than enough to overcome
Exactly.
that white MAGA vote. But there needs to be investment in that. And I think that's where throughout this past 18 months, we've talked to folks nationally, statewide, locally about getting investments to help organize in diverse communities, and no one's motivated. You look at Colin Arred, who raised $80 to $90 million. There's just an article that 57.7 million was spent on advertising and marketing. That money is not going to make a difference when we got to organizing communities first. So we're going to go to Carlos next, and then we're going to go over here. Go ahead, Carlos. You had your hand raised earlier.
Yeah, back to those local elections. Like, if you're not inside the loop, no one really knew about who's running for the Democratic side.
Mhm.
So, again, back to not being enough grassroots investment in those elections. As far as like the U.S. elections, the Harris campaign raised over $1 billion, but they're $20 million in debt. How did that happen?
Right.
And since she said to pull up sources, on one of the things that got $1 million spent on was to hold a campaign event at one of Oprah Winfrey's buddies at one of her venues, and $1 million was donated to that, or paid to that venue from the campaign. So it's like, again, what you said, all this money that's being raised, it's being used for what? For fancy venues?
Yeah, there's another report, $100,000 was spent on a podcast studio room.
It's like,
Really?
if
Oh
they're
my
smart enough,
God.
it's like TikTok is there. TikTok is free. Talk to the younger people about how the heck do you get this viral? How the heck do you get these elections on your Facebook algorithm or whatever? Start investing in more local stuff, because people are too busy.
Celebrity concerts is not the answer.
Yeah,
We know
people are too busy finding out if the Cowboys lose or not the next Sunday night. They're more worried about that than who's sheriff for the Tarrant County Jail. That's the honest truth.
Right.
People don't really care because it's not in their face.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to put it in their face so that they can care. Because they will care. Of course they will. It's affecting our community. But there's just a lot of people who are, I'm going to use the cliche, who are still slept. They're not woke. They're still too busy trying to see their fantasy football league or whatever is going to come out on TV. So people aren't really paying attention to that.
And that goes to show that we don't have relationships with enough of our community that we live next door to, right? Because we're community, we're talking about this, but we've got to, that's work to build community. And folks want to just treat it like an advertising and marketing, like it's a product to get people to buy. And the community's telling you they're not buying.
Yeah,
But
you got to
build relationships with folks. And so we've got some online comments we're going to go to, but first we got another person here in the Doc Bookshop who wants to talk.
Hi, I'm Helen. So, I have many things to say, but I'm going to try to stick to what we're talking about specifically. Gerrymandering has gotten so fine-tuned via computers that the only way we're going to move the needle at all is to break the algorithm, which means, and this is, what I'm working on, to get white men to dedicate their time and their money to caring. Because what happened was Biden didn't empower Kamala at all. He should have, in 2021, put her as the economy czar, knowing that we were going to only move up after COVID. And smoke and mirrors, he could have just been behind her the whole time, could have gotten people behind her, and he didn't. And so now you have woman of color jumping in, that it is already too easy to denigrate women, and especially Black women, because all you have to do is Joe Rogan the guys who it will never affect, and they won't show up to the polls because it doesn't matter to them. And we saw apathy. We saw this just last minute push. We saw a lot of money go to consultants and text bot farms when we need to be spending on our infrastructure, because
Like you talking about?
we are, when all this stuff comes crashing down, because it always does, and they keep building on top of the rubble instead of taking time and making sure we're all okay and safe, we're gonna have to do it anyway. Black women always do it anyway, because, you know, they're not gonna let the world fail. Yeah, they've had to. And when you think you're superior and this dude knows something because he's successful, it's not hard to convince men that the reason he's successful is because of him, because they see it in themselves too. And what's gonna happen? Black women have made it so easy for, and I'm not saying this in like, I'm saying this is what they got out of, one of the many things they extracted from you as humans, is they didn't have to see the suffering that their policies were inflicting on the world, because there were always people who won't let people fail. And what happens when the caregivers can't care for themselves? What happens when we're about to see a lot of white women-led charities, you know, with more balls and stuff and fundraising that doesn't actually go to people. And there's a lot of learned helplessness, and we had in Texas, if we want to move the needle politically, it has to be white men. The notion that they can just loaf and do literally nothing, right? And expect people to also have the time to fight for themselves. I had a man tell a teacher friend next to me, why don't y'all just unionize and do a walkout? And she was like, well, who the fuck is going to watch the children? You organize, you do a walkout, or you come teach. You get underpaid to teach in your retirement so she can go fight for herself. But it's community. Yeah, I mean, community is everything, right? But getting the vote out within the community that is already being pushed down to its limits.
Yeah.
It's not their responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. And right now, there are way too many people who think that none of this is their responsibility and they're not profiting on it or anything. And it's not going to be good.
That was a lot, Helen.
Yeah,
So much.
there's a lot of
It's
things I
Helene,
think we
right?
picked up in.
Helen.
Helen.
Yeah.
Helen. Yeah, that was a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
I think
I'm trying to digest all that she said.
I want to highlight a couple things from online, and then highlight and kind of respond to a couple things that Helen's brought up.
Yeah. So Helen is saying that the white men are needed and necessary.
Her vice president was Walsh. Could he have done more?
Why they Walsh? I mean, you know what? They did all they could do. I really don't think. I mean, you can always do more. You can always do more. You can always do more, but it's other forces out there. I think.
It's so easy to denigrate.
It's other
women and
forces
women
working
of color.
against them.
They
Okay.
didn't have to try very hard with the propaganda,
Right.
because there's just it's disgusting, but it's
Yeah.
every point in history that
Mm.
that something, that the locks get clamped back down or attempts to do it. It is the same exact words. And they're words that people are totally comfortable throwing around.
Well, I think this is a big part of when people frame diverse communities in the deficit that are super problematic in terms of post analysis. What caused this? What was the issue? Donna brings up online in response to the Black men conversation, but Black men still voted in higher percentages for Harris.
They did.
Um,
They did.
And yes, there was movement, but we need to understand why there was movement and how there was propaganda within communities of men and within diverse communities that was pushing a lot of this stuff, as well as us needing to address certain issues that are being brought up. But once again, it's very easy to immediately say Harris lost because Black men voted more for Trump, and that
It is not that simple.
that is not the narrative that I think we should be adopting, because it immediately allows everyone to put diverse communities in a deficit perspective versus where the majority of the issue is, which is among white men and women who are voting overwhelmingly for Trump. And so Donna also said here, he's in terms of Trump's cabinet, he's only picking loyalists for cabinet members, not qualified individuals. And a big part of that is because they don't want qualified individuals. They want to destroy the federal government. And so they really don't care who's going to do that. So they're going to give it to people who they think will help destroy it. And then Donna, I think, sent an image to both of y'all that she wanted to share.
Stats too.
And then Ben Wheeler jumped in and also contributes to this around Tim Dunn and the Wilkes brothers all in Midland, Texas, who own the GOP in Texas and have some control up north as well. That there's these billionaires who are funding these infrastructures for propaganda, funding these infrastructures for oppression, and they're getting elected officials to do their bidding because of that money that they have. So just wanted to highlight and thank Donna and Ben for staying tuned in with us and everyone else who's online. If you have any other comments, share it with us so we can highlight it here with the community, but also to everyone who's watching. And then I think Helen had a couple of things that maybe we'll go through a couple of those items. First one is gerrymandering, which I think is a very important topic that a lot of folks are working and fighting against. And for those who may not know, gerrymandering is when the census happens every 10 years and we get a population count of where people are and where they're living. State legislatures then redraw the lines, and it's called redistricting. When they redraw the lines based on what district represents you, which elected official represents you in different forms of government. When they gerrymander that redistricting process, that means they pack and they design districts in all these weird shapes so that certain communities and certain voters are either more packed and consolidated in a single district and giving districts to less diversity, or they crack those communities so that a little bit is in these different districts, but there's not enough for them to be in compared to a majority of maybe a white electorate that is votes in opposition to them. And so they design all this stuff based on that. The only thing I'll say about gerrymandering, though, that from the Democratic perspective that they continue to fail at is that the elected officials locally like Mark Vesey or House District members like Ramon Romero or Nicole Collier, or in Austin like Lloyd Doggett, and even Allred in Dallas, who was a congressman there before running for Senate, they are also not investing in those districts that they know are gerrymandered, that packs more of their voters in that space, to help us then have the statewide or countywide or larger races that go beyond their district. And so, yes, gerrymandering does impact us to where there's a skewed representation in the House legislator or in the county's commissioner court or city council or in Congress. But the offset that we can do until we reform that is that the folks who are representing those denser, bluer districts are just sitting on the sidelines because they know they won't be challenged. And they're saying, oh, I don't have to get out the vote because I'm going to win automatically. But you have a huge percentage of the voters in your district that makes an impact in these other races. And so they sit on $10 million or $2 million or $20 million. And if a challenger comes to them, it becomes very problematic that you're hurting democracy because you're challenging them. So gerrymandering is impacting in a lot of different ways.
Snowball.
It's in a lot of different ways. And we just don't have leadership or representation when it comes to the Democratic side that is understanding how to fight against that. Even though you can't fight all of it, there is still work that they can do. Because a statewide race is not gerrymandered, and a countywide race is not gerrymandered. And that's just not being understood in terms of what those elected officials aren't doing either. And then the other thing about, I think we may want to open it up, the comments about white men and the perspective about white men. Does anybody want to have any thoughts to continue that conversation about the need for them to step up in what they're doing?
I mean, I agree, because at the end of the day, they're the majority of the population, whether we like it or not. They have numbers on their side. So we can organize for ourselves as much as we want, build the coalitions we want, but at the end of the day, they have the numbers. And like the election showed, 10 million less voters voted these elections. So either I could be like the far right and say it's a conspiracy and 10 million votes were deleted, or 10 million people just didn't care and they didn't vote. And also, so definitely and back to what she said with the Joe Rogan propaganda, it's real. It's real. As a 28-year-old, I'm going to tell you it's real. I started watching Joe Rogan when I was 15 years old, because it started as like a podcast where like he talks about aliens and he talks about shrooms and weed and all this stuff. But over time, it started changing. And as it changed, young men changed with it.
Interesting.
Not only do they have that Joe Rogan on hold, but unfortunately, Joe Rogan has now he's a quote unquote comedian. So he has influence in today's comedy. In Texas, he moved the whole comedy scene from California to down in Austin. So there's money behind it. There's Spotify money behind this propaganda. So it's real, and we do have to figure out a way how to enter that space so that we can, target the young men. Because it's not only white men, it's Latino men too, it's black men too. And another one too, the MMA, the UFC. I love that. You'd be surprised how infiltrated the Republican Party or conservatives have infiltrated that sport. You cannot watch a pay-per-view without them showing Donald Trump on the big screen and them applauding him. Like, it is crazy. So
again, that's that low-level grassroots type of involvement. It's not, this whole center stage. That it's different areas, different pockets, and do that.
Yep.
So yeah, that's definitely real with that propaganda for the young men.
Well, and what they do is, because some of the dudes they bring on to give them scientific credibility, like evolutionary psychology type of stuff, because this is my field of background, and it's the conclusions they always come to are basically the women are the reason our young men are suffering, and you can see where about halfway they turn to make that conclusion, because if they cared, they could say something like, if you care about our young men, you have to care about her mother first, right? And where the anger and the resources go. And they have like scientific evolutionary proof that they are in fact superior, and it is our job to be subordinate. And talk about bastardizing statistics. It's it's like y'all are just literally everything you find, every
Foolish.
finding you find is we are better, and you're wrong every time. Every time, no one's better,
I'm
right?
just gonna go back into them numbers. 70, Donna, you can make your face all you want to. 70% of
Because I'm not understanding the numbers.
70% of the white population voted. There is a lot of voter apathy out there, and we cannot deny those numbers. It is what it is. How do we have to get people out there to even vote, to even come to the table and negotiate.
Mhm.
I'm looking at those numbers, and it's ludicrous to see those types of numbers. 11%, and we're in 2024. And you go off of 30, what was it, 39 for white men, 34% of white women.
Yeah,
And
I don't know
cannot
that.
fault them just because the white men voted unanimously for Trump, while the black women voted unanimously for Kamala. So the logic is there. Self-preservation is always the number one rule, and that's what they're preserving themselves.
Yep.
You can't fight nobody for preserving themselves. But what are we going to do to offset that? You get qualified people out there that are about the people, not about Hollywood elite. I don't even recall Trump having no Hollywood people. People laughed at him going to McDonald's. People laughed at him.
Well, he is Hollywood. I mean, he is
But
celebrity.
they laughed at him on construction sites. Well, these are where your real people are at. If I could have called Trump before the election, say, Trump, I want you to come to my store, he would probably have come to the store. I could have called Ted Cruz and said, I want you to come to my store. He would probably come to the store. Huh?
Not Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz would have probably
He
come.
would have been in Cancun.
But during election time, he would have came.
He didn't even go to that one event that those Latino conservatives threw on Day of the Dead in Northside. His daddy had to show up.
But
Because he wouldn't
we're
show
talking about relationship building. And
That's what I'm
building
saying. He decided not to build that
But you're talking
relationship with the Latino
relationship building
community because his
African
daddy
American.
showed up instead. That's why I'm just pushing back on
And his dad is just as powerful too. His dad is a writer. His dad is just as
And
powerful.
Donald Trump is an attention whore. So
Yes.
if you tell him to do something for his benefit, he will do anything.
I think it's beautiful. I love Beyonce. I'm a fan of Beyonce. I'm a fan of Kelly Rowland. I am a fan of Megan Scott. But again, that is not a those numbers tell you that's not where the heart of the people are. We have went so far left, and we want to deny it. We have went so far left into liberalism. If you scroll down your social media before you went into that voter booth, you would have voted for Trump just for the sheer mess on social media.
What kind of social media? Because I disagree. On my end, every single Democratic candidate was police, border patrol. It was like I was watching the Republican Party. So I disagree. The Democratic has gone so far right that that's the reason they lost. Did you see Harris campaign for any actual progressive policies? No, she was talking about how she's going to have the most lethal military in the world. And also, don't underestimate the Muslim population because they have pull. You see what happened in Michigan. That not only the Biden and Harris have lied. Biden said 30 days ago that he will stop arming Israel. We're on day 31. That was a lie. So don't underestimate the Muslim population either.
Who took Michigan?
Not her.
Trump.
Numbers
Well,
don't lie.
Bernie,
Numbers
These
don't
numbers
lie.
do this stat. I don't know. This stat is telling me, and I see what you're talking about. It's saying 7% of Black women voted.
No, 7% of the women that voted, of the Black women that voted.
No, it's saying sex by race. It says 7%, which I don't believe that number.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is just a graph, but we're not being told what those percentages are referencing.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to say
Yeah.
it. You can look it up anywhere. It's telling you that top number right there is the number of people in that population.
That's not what that number means.
Yeah,
It means something else because there's 165 million registered voters in America, and we had 150 million vote for president.
7% of the black. That's the only way you can break into your 92%. Is telling you out of the registered voter population, 7% of the registered voter population of black women, 96% of them voted for Kamala. So that's telling you, if 10 women voted,
I don't think that number is telling you how many of them voted. I think that
Right.
number is telling you how many of them represent the electorate. That 7% black women represent 7% of the electorate in America, and of that 7%, that's their population.
that's fine. And
But
you
that
agree.
92% of that population voted for Harris, and 8% voted for Trump. But it doesn't mean that only 7% voted. It just means that 7% represent the
Yeah.
electorate. That's how it breaks down in terms of the number of votes that come from black women. As the maximum amount that could come from black women is 7% of the electorate, is what it's saying.
Bernie Sanders said something that made a whole lot of sense. He said one of the main reasons he believed that the Democrats lost was because they had abandoned the working class.
Well, yeah,
That's true too.
that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
They didn't come grassroots.
And so that is the real issue. You know, they
Yeah.
when you I know with the Hollywood, Kamala come from Hollywood, California. Two things you have to have behind you to get elected at the end of this. In a significant way in California, you got to have the Hollywood crowd against for you, and you also have to have the Bechtel Corporation for you. They build a lot of this stuff overseas and everything. I don't know if you ever heard of the Bechtel Corporation. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Look it up sometimes. How powerful they are.
So there's a couple of things that we've I know we're going to be wrapping up our conversation here in a minute, because we're going to be over time, over our hour here in a minute. But a couple of things I just want to just circle back around. I know we heard from Helen and Carlos about white men, but I think I understand what you're talking about. But I also just want to give some context that in Texas specifically, the white community is the minority. So in Texas specifically, this is a diverse majority state. And so the numbers, when it comes to the numbers of voters that are going to be able to change the direction, we're going to be able to pull from the diverse communities to be able to make that happen in terms of changing that representation. But like we've been talking about, it's not going to be just an advertisement and marketing campaign. It's got to be actual relationship building and organizing within those spaces. And so while white men have a lot of money and have a lot of power, absolutely, there is no motivation for them to concede that other than us out organizing them and taking that power. And so I think that's the perspective around why we need to invest in grassroots organizing in diverse communities and why that vote needs to be able to show up. Because even in Texas, if it ends up being 60 to 65 or 68% of the electorate that turned out this election, in Texas, percentage points mean a lot because we have over 18 million registered voters. So if you don't have 30% of folks who are voting, that's getting close to 6 million people who didn't vote. That's larger than state, majority of states that have number of voters available to them. Like we have state size population that's not voting in Texas, but there's a lot of power in that. And a lot of that power, those votes that aren't voting are in our black and brown communities. And so there's work to be done to change that perspective, to change that narrative and everything. And so I just wanted to circle back around that. And then as a follow-up to the Manaverse, which this is a term that maybe not everyone is familiar with, but what they call this content online that is male-centric and that is steeped in toxic masculinity and hyper-masculinity where...
Did that happen when Hillary... I'm just wondering, I'm just curious when this actually started.
No, this has been a trait that has been researched and identified for the past couple of decades around why are young men being brought up without empathy? Why are young men not being brought up to share their emotions?
No, the question I'm asking because, for example, when okay, let's just say at the end of slavery, when black people were building their towns and cities, and so the KKK was created to terrorize them and cause havoc. I'm just wondering when women started, running for president. I'm just wondering if that happened. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Was it an increase in that when that happened?
I had no doubt it was an
to-
increase. Absolutely, you're spot on. No doubt that was an
To
increase.
try to keep women, I guess, in their place. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just wondering.
And
this whole Roe versus Wade thing, trying to dismantle that just as a sign to keep women in their place.
Yeah.
So
And the thing I would like to plug for people to check out is there's a great YouTuber out of Atlanta, Georgia named FD Signifier, who did about 3 different videos around this, not only the Manoverse and what is being built and what it's doing, but also the Black Manoverse. Because as a Black content creator, he's focusing on impacts of the Black community. But then, like Carlos is saying, that also exists within the Latino community. And so if folks want to learn a little bit more about this current iteration of this propaganda for men and why men are coming up with the perspectives that they're having, this Manoverse through the social media age is something that is really important for folks to kind of dig into and understand. And it's through the expansion of social media that we've seen young women, the self-harm increase from the interaction of social media. And we've also seen this increase in this hyper toxic masculinity happen within these spaces.
They really
So
have during COVID.
This is a really big
You
phenomenon
can't escape from it.
since the beginning of social media through where we're at now, and different things happening. Yes, Obama even getting elected is a part of it. Hillary running for president, part of it. The pandemic happening is a part of it. But its roots for this current iteration can be seen from the beginning stages of social media and how anonymity was helping people navigate this space in a very harmful way. And people have just learned how to weaponize it and fine tune it and curate it to where we're at right now through all of these things.
I just want to share this was shared with me as we close out. Okay, I don't know if y'all seen this, and I don't know. Sometimes social media, you just wonder if it's even true. But Donald Trump promises reparations to white Americans, labeling them as racial discrimination victims.
What publication is this?
It's coming from the Black Enterprise, and so I'm just curious. Have you heard of that? Like, really?
Nope.
I'm not surprised though.
It's too easy because it's like when COVID.
Racial discrimination victims?
Well, because if you make them feel victimized or threatened, that's when the stuff comes out and the message gets really fine tuned, and these people feel like they are victimized. That
And
they are,
White men feel victimized.
yes,
That's the anti-CRT,
it's insane.
anti-DEI movement in
gotta be
education.
kidding me. And they were
The reason the Texas legislature passed laws to limit the history we're talking about is because the discomfort of white students talking about slavery.
Because it's their parents.
Right. So yes, this line of thinking, they have been laying down the roadmap for to be able to justify that. And,
Day one.
Mhm.
Pre-day one.
I just thought this was absolutely ridiculous.
yeah. Well, that's
a lot of power because you got a Republican president, you got a Republican House, and you got a Republican Senate. You got 3
and
heads.
Supreme Court.
Right?
And the Supreme Court.
So
All
executive
this is an
branch,
oligarchy
the legislative
run by
branch,
3 white
and the
dudes.
judicial branch, 3 branches of government in the United States that are
And
meant
then
Well,
I heard
hold
he
on,
was
hold on.
appointing
That-
someone to UN.
that are meant to be the checks and balances between executive, legislative, and judicial. Those checks and balances are being erased right now
Yep.
with everyone that got elected this election.
The Project 2025 is going to be carried out.
Yeah.
And those that sit home and say, I'm just going to vote locally, totally missed out on a local vote.
Yep.
You totally missed it. So if they hear me, hopefully they hear me. I don't vote in the presidential election. Well, guess what? He appointed his whole cabinet. So you guys participate.
Wow.
And all you guys that want to continually shop on Amazon, share Amazon. I got people on my own personal feed, they know we own a bookstore. We'll say shop Amazon. You too participated in giving Trump money because Trump money came from percentage of Jeff Bezos' income. So we all contributed to that campaign if we want to follow the money.
Yep.
So if some people need to stop running to Amazon, because that's what you call a monopoly. Antitrust laws, all the antitrust laws that we were fighting for is going to go away.
They never bothered to regulate
So
the tech
so
industry.
so
I
hope
guess he
people
wasn't
hear
kidding
me
when he
clearly.
said,
when you
vote for
didn't
me, you
vote
have
for
to ever
Trump,
vote
you
again.
voted for
Nope.
Trump in your money. Because Jeff
Mm.
Bezos gave him money, and can you blame him?
But I think to close this out, Danya, I think you're spot on. Is that
And we appreciate your passion.
the results of the election are going to cause a lot of issues for a lot of people, but it's important for people to know that yes, we want people to still vote if we have the right to vote, right? To be able to change this, but our vote is not the only thing that has power. We as people, as community have power, our dollars has power, and it's
Mhm.
us building community and being mindful of our dollars and being mindful of our votes and everything in between that we can build a pathway out of this, because no one is going to come fix and save it for us. It's us that has to fix and save this.
That part.
And if there's anything anyone should take from this election that we should have known from decades past, from the examples that have been given to us, from people who have fought the fights that they have fought, is that we have to come together. That, yes, they are going to dismantle the federal government. Yes, we already have a state in Texas that our legislature is already an authoritarian-minded government. We already have Tarrant County that is at the epicenter of extremism, and we've been living in it. And maybe, just maybe, we wake up enough to say it is going to be in the hands of each other and our neighbors in our community that we can build the power to change this. And from the perspective that I work in a lot, this is why grassroots organizing is so important. And we have to actually, those dollars can be invested in that. Those dollars can be invested in the Duck Bookshop. Those dollars can be invested in the assets we want to have to be able to change what's happening. And I think that, Danya, thanks so much for bringing that up. We still have an immense amount of power, no matter what headlines say, no matter what decisions are made. And we need to do everything we can to exercise our individual and collective power to get out of this mess that we're in right now.
And not put people's personal agenda, your group agenda ahead of everybody, of the agenda of the whole. I hate to speak. I am going to speak on it. I've read Fred Rouse's story, and I went to the program. I watched the PowerPoint presentation, and again, if we navigate back to what happened to him and what broke down, it was Black families broke down at that particular time. He was working for his family, but what was on the agenda was LGBTQ. I don't have no offense to that, so don't nobody take it personal. But at the same time, the Black family was not mentioned. But that was the breakdown right there. When he got mastered going to work for his family, the whole family broke down. To the point that the grandson didn't know about the grandfather because the family broke down. That's the breakdown of the family. Why was that not at the top of the initiative? So we got to stop being in denial and get down into the facts of what is important. Mm-hmm. A strong family creates a strong community. A strong community creates strong voters. A strong voter community creates change. If we don't have that strength happening, that's starting within the family, and keep losing sight of it, you'll never be able to make a difference.
And she said she lost her voice today. We hear you loud and clear.
Well, we want to thank everyone online. Donna, for your comments. Ben Wheeler, for your support and the comments being made. And that his last comment is good unites us. And you can look up a business and see what they support as a way of influencing with your dollars. But thanks everyone for this reflection conversation, all the perspectives that were shared, or or thought. And
I guess we gotta talk more about what's next. That'll be our next month conversation.
yeah, so what's next? Well, what's next? We'll have another meeting in December.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'll talk about that. Some actions we can take now, to get.
I think the biggest thing that we'll encourage folks is to find community over these next couple of months while we're entering the holiday season and while people are reflecting. Come to the Doc Bookshop. There are community events happening all the time. Be in community. Find community where you're at. There's a number of things happening that I know Terror for Change is helping with at the Blank Co-working Studio space that we're at right now. So there's going to be a number of events that people can join there that they can find online. There's the other community spaces that we have that we want to make sure people are aware of. But whatever it is, find community, build relationships, and let's start there.
All right.
And we'll see you in another month,
In
second
another
Thursday
month.
on December.
I thought Diane was gonna turn it off. I'm gonna do it.